The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
For the first time in over half a century, the New York Knicks are NBA Cup champions.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast.
We talk about data points all year. You are very good, unlike me, who's overly emotional, focusing on sample size and saying, hey, one game, don't read too much into it. I'm going to read a lot into tonight. I said coming in, the Spurs, thanks to the Knicks, just terrible schedule to start the year. Even if they weren't the Thunder, the healthy version of the Spurs represented clearly the best opponent the Knicks have faced all season long. Shout out to Franz Wagner, the one game he was healthy against the Magic. But I'd say this is the best team they've played all season. No Deuce McBride, no Landry Shamet. You did a brilliant job on your podcast over at Hot Hand Theory, and a little bit on this one, pointing out why that would be such an issue for the Knicks, specifically against the Spurs, down by 11 in the third quarter when Victor Wembanyama just started Wembanyamaing out, 2 threes, 2 dunks, offensive rebounds galore, Knicks struggling at the point of attack, and then they just kick some butt in the fourth quarter and win the NBA Cup.
Well, firstly, you have the energy of a Mitchell Robinson right now, and that's incredible. So I'm totally here for it. And secondly, I think there is so much to take away from this one game. I think it matters a ton. And I have talked about, obviously, you mentioned sample size and kind of waiting on our evaluation of Mike Brown in terms of results. I am not a results-oriented person. I'm a process-oriented person. But the process in this game was very, very good, I thought, especially given the deficits that the Knicks were at. You mentioned it, and I'll kind of re-summarize all of these things that were going against the Knicks right now. We're talking about not having Deuce McBride and Landry Shamet, 2 of their best point of attack defenders, yet keeping small guards out of the paint or quick guards out of the paint. Missing both those guys, had no way to keep Stephon Castle and De'Aaron Fox out of the paint. Absolutely no way to do it. They just couldn't. There was no chance of doing it. They went zone for a little bit. Zone got busted with offensive rebounds and 3-point shots. That didn't work. Nothing was going well for them. We're talking about Dylan Harper hitting, I think he was 5 of 7 from 3. That's unreal for him. I'm pretty sure he had like
26% on the season coming in.
I'm pretty sure he's made like 10 threes all season and shooting 26% on them. What we saw from him was ridiculous. And Castle was just living in the paint. I was like, this guy needs to just change his zip code, start doing filling out a change of address form and just start getting his mail there, because he was just in the paint all night. And again, there was nothing the Knicks could do about it. Got essentially nothing from Mikal Bridges, who has been, in my opinion, I've talked about this, got pushback on it, but I think it's well validated, has been playing at an all-star level this season. Got nothing from him. Got very little from Towns, who got injured early in the second quarter, I think it was, third quarter. Yes. Up and down game from Jalen Brunson. You're not supposed to beat the team that just beat the Oklahoma City Thunder with that kind of team, with that kind of luck and all of those kinds of things. And so it matters to me that they won the game. I am not a rah kind of guy. I'm a hard data and we go by what things look like in terms of the film and the data and the analytics and all of that stuff. But this stuff matters, man. This stuff matters. This was a game where Stephon Castle was playing like the LeBron James of Josh Hart's. Like he was incredible. And they just outcompeted. We saw Mitchell Robinson, OG Anunoby completely take over a game. And my guy, Tyler Kolek, shout out to the Kolek Hive. If you're in the chat right now, drop your comments, because we had a lot of pushback on a couple of times. I kind of raved about Kolek and just his otherworldly gifted passing and just some of the intangible stuff that he does and his intensity, getting more and more confident, brings a dynamic that nobody else on this Knicks team does. And it was so essential in that game. And to me, it's crazy to say I thought he was the player of the game on the Knicks side. So we'll talk about Jordan Clarkson. We'll talk about all these guys, but that's just kind of like my rundown of my experience of that game. Just incredible win. And I think super, super meaningful, even in a 1-game sample.
Yeah, to me, my 10,000 foot view on this is that through three quarters, my takeaway was the Knicks do not have championship level depth and are just going to have perfect injury luck in the playoffs if they want to make a run to the NBA finals. And again, that probably should not switch, or I probably should not have been so convinced off of three quarters. I shouldn't have been so convinced of that off the fourth quarter. But to me, the value of the NBA Cup, because the NBA is stupid and you don't even get an extra win for this, much less a top 4 seed like I've suggested, or some other kind of on-court bonus. Congratulations, a lot of money. This is the game of the year and you don't even get a win. Anyways, that's a story for another day. The value in this is intel, right? And is self-scouting. And it's something I've talked about for years and years and years with the New York Knicks. Like, how do you perform in a game where like one of the best young coaches, like maybe at some point soon, XJ, like you probably have more thoughts on this than I do, just one of the best coaches in the NBA, Mitch Johnson,
incredible.
Like,
He's incredible.
Planning against you intensely. And before that, Jamal Mosley. And before that, like Darko Rajakovic, like this is a good run of coaches, like designing complete game plans to expose the Knicks' weaknesses and blunt their strengths. How do you respond in those moments? And my takeaway was, geez, Mikal Bridges not holding up too well against ball pressure. Mikal Bridges not holding up too well in screen navigation. They could really use Deuce and Shamet. But maybe the even bigger one was like, man, like they don't have the bench for it. And like maybe with Shamet, maybe with Deuce, everyone can play 38, 39 minutes again. We've seen this story before and they can get to the finals. But we've also seen how that story ends, right? And there are other factors at play, but that has ended year after year after year with the Knicks falling short of an NBA championship because they don't have like the 9 guys that you can trust. And again, that is a luxury. There are very few teams like that. Like last season, it was only the Thunder and the Pacers. And that was why, and the Celtics before they got hurt. And that was the reason why 2 of those 3 teams ended up in the finals. We saw that in the fourth quarter. Mitchell Robinson, like against Victor Wembanyama, who everyone, myself included, to start this year was saying, all right, maybe he's already the best player in the NBA. And Mitchell Robinson clowned him. He embarrassed him at the start of this fourth quarter. The Knicks were struggling. They were down by 11 late in the third. In this sequence, offensive rebound, put back dunk, offensive rebound, spray to Clarkson 3. Offensive rebound, spray to Clarkson 3. There was a 4th offensive rebound there to get them like an earlier, like second possession. Like that was 4 offensive rebounds in 3 possessions, 8 points, game changing. Jordan Clarkson, who I wrote in my notes early in this game, yeah, he's just not going to be on the floor in big games. Like he freaking stepped up.
NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
This is the Spurs Postcast, your instant game reaction for the San Antonio Spurs.
San Antonio tonight going down in Las Vegas, 124-113, in a game that they pretty much had handily, led in control, led by double digits in the second half. It does not work out that way. Instead, they make the trip back from Sin City, my friend, to the Alamo City, and they do it empty-handed.
And I'm Devin Brown. Hey, listen, disappointing, but lots of positives to pick up from this game. Casey, let's get into it.
This is what you'll be talking about.
All right, so the Spurs, of course, were the underdogs coming in this 2.5-point dogs, which is pretty much a pick 'em at that point when it comes to the NBA. And this was a game that they did not look like 2.5-point dogs because it felt like they were on the precipice of just pulling away and just could not get the knockout blow really through the duration of the first half. They took a 2-point lead into the break. Victor Wembanyama came off the bench again. He checked in a little bit earlier the first quarter as opposed to when he sat out all of the first quarter against Oklahoma City and was largely not particularly impactful. It was Fox who led the way at 15. Wemby only 4 points and 4 rebounds, 2 of 6 from the field. They couldn't get away from the Knicks, led by as many as 8. But OG over there, he had 20 in the first half, only up by 2. But then the Spurs, they get things going their way, and you hear so much about the younger legs, the athleticism, and it showed. They were pressuring Brunson, forcing turnovers, getting out in transition, and they actually went up by 11 points. Midway through the third quarter, back end of the third quarter. But as we've seen a lot with the Spurs, it was the Knicks in this scenario that rode everybody else. Karl Anthony Towns got banged out. He left, and it was the likes of Tyler Kolek and Jordan Clarkson. San Antonio's own, who cut it down to 5 after 3 quarters of play. Clarkson comes back out of the fourth quarter, hits 2 more threes. OG Anunoby hits another. It's a 13-1 spurt that turns that deficit into a 5-point lead. New York takes off from there, and they get all the big buckets down the stretch when it matters. And the big thing is offensive rebound, and we're going to hit on that a little bit more in a second. But a game that San Antonio led for largely the duration of it. Victor, 18 points, 6 rebounds, 7 of 17 from the field, 25 minutes. Dylan Harper, 21 and 7. Fox, 16 and 9. Castle, 15 and 12 assists. It hurts because the Spurs were right there. They were knocking on the door. They had it. They had it in many respects, but it was energy, it was effort, and the difference, and the reason why that there's going to be hanging an Emirates Cup banner in NYC in the coming days.
Well, this talk about a couple of things here. First quarter, and we find out Wemby is going to come off the bench, second straight game doing that. And Spurs still had a 2-point advantage at the end of the first quarter and first half. So whatever that strategy was, it worked. It didn't hurt them, anything like that. Now, let's talk about third quarter and some of the great things that I saw. That was a heavyweight fight right there, blow for blow, bucket for bucket, 3 for 3. 2 for 2, things like that. Got Castle all over the place, putting his body on the line, keeping the ball alive, being able to get the ball to big Wemby. Wemby got hot there, for a little bit. Now let's talk about the fourth, all right? Spurs been having problems with the third quarter. Seem like they're fixing that as we move this thing along, but the fourth quarter collapse. Uncharacteristic. We have a gentleman, called Mr. Fourth Quarter. So you're expecting him to step up along with everybody else, that have been playing well. Casey, it just didn't happen tonight. But here's the thing. You can't, we're not going to give up on our Spurs. Now, there might be 1,500 people at the airport, when they come back, not the 5,000 and the Coyote and the dancers like it was going to be. But there's some positives to pick up here. We'll touch on that a little bit later. But Casey, I like some of the things that I saw with this team because you see the growth happening right in front of us.
Mm-hmm. No, and I mean, from that standpoint, it's a tremendous positive that they collectively as a whole, the trip was a success.
Right.
It's unfortunate that it ended on a fourth quarter, which they were outscored 35-19. And ultimately the difference, OG Anunoby, the high man, the game high man, as I mentioned, he had 28. Brunson named the Cup MVP, tournament MVP. He had 25 and 8. Clarkson, the Wagner guy, comes back, 15 points. Tyler Kolek, one of those things with Tyler Kolek, a legacy game. He had 14. What do you do?
Jordan Clarkson, has an impact on the game, and anybody that's on the same list that I am is San Antonio, some San Antonio's finest high school basketball players. I cheer for them, especially the guys that are behind me. You know what I mean? And I don't mean behind as in age. I mean behind as you're this one here, and then however they rank the rest of them is fine with me. But Jordan, he played well tonight. Not familiar with this, because I don't watch the Knicks. I'm Spurs, locked on Spurs. I'm not locked on Knicks, so I wasn't familiar with that floppy-haired fella that was out there. But he's a good player. He's a good player. He does everything that the Knicks need him to do and more. And so, guys like that, Mitchell Robinson, they don't have any slouches on that Knicks team. And, when you play for Coach Brown, you're going to get after it. And, Casey, that's what we saw tonight.
Yeah, you mentioned Big Mitch over there. He's needless to say, the guy who, in many respects, kind of decided this thing.
It's time to reveal who made the biggest under-the-radar impact with today's X Factor.
You know, usually you talk about the scorers deciding things, Clarkson, but Mitchell Robinson on the glass today, 15 rebounds.
In 18 minutes.
10 offensive rebounds. Spearheading what was a 59-42 rebounding advantage in favor of New York.
Yeah.
56 points in the paint, 32 second chance points.
Can I tell you a secret, Casey?
Tell me a secret.
Mitchell Robinson does what they ask him to do.
Mm-hmm.
If Rudy Gobert could ever have the effort that kid has and realize what it is that Mitchell Robinson brings to them that he could do for the Timberwolves, he'd be a different player. Sorry, go on.
No. I mean, it's not a secret. Mitchell Robinson's been doing this for years. And he's been doing this for years. The only concern is health, because he's never been healthy. I mean, we've seen it in the postseason, like 3-4 years ago. You saw it when they played Cleveland, and him and Hartenstein, when he was in New York, just totally took care of Mobley and Allen. You saw it that series. He played well against Joel Embiid a couple years ago. It was a difference maker there. You saw it last year in the series against the Celtics, where he's not only grabbing these offensive rebounds, he's closing out, he's trapping guys in the corner, all these things. It's always been a matter of the health with Mitchell Robinson. And when he's good and he's healthy, you know, we've talked so much about putting Wemby on that, you know, that Embiid type plan. That's kind of what the Knicks have been doing with Mitchell Robinson and keeping him fresh for these kind of games. But it's working. And I think this kind of pivots back to the guy who's, you know, going to be taking a lot of the criticism for this. Wemby is going to be taking a lot of the criticism for this, because that kind of goes what comes with the territory of being a star. Victor got outplayed tonight. Victor did not play well. He got out rebounded, and this is going into the game. He's talking about how the Knicks don't exactly play the most sophisticated style of basketball compared to OKC, compared to Miami. So it was all out there, and
right.
He put it all out there on the table. And to go out there and lose in that fashion that he did, that the Spurs did, to struggle the way that they did to contain him, that hurts on the Wemby side of things. If we're taking off the goggles, the Fiesta color goggles, and we're just being rational here, I mean, this was probably his biggest game as a pro in the NBA.
Yeah.
And the end result was not good, compounded by the fact that he put the bulletin board material out there. It was not a good night for Victor Wembanyama.
All right, let me ask you this. I know he was on a minutes restriction, right?
Right.
You think he sat too long in that fourth?
Yeah.
After the third quarter that he had. And I get it. Yeah. You know, he hits his third one, the mid-range. He hit 2 threes. He hits that third one, and I saw Luke Cornett coming to the table, and I was hoping he was going to get Barnes, but he got Wemby, and I go, okay, Mitch, for those, and me and you are those, that criticize Mitch on some of his decision-making, right? We praise everybody, but also we got to be on the other side as well, and that's what you and I are good at. I don't know if you sit him for that long.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about Victor. Like, I get it. You know, minutes restrictions. And Casey, I meant to, in my new deal here, I meant to put some Advil up there. That's for Victor. If you guys get him over here to the crib, that Advil will help with whatever it is he's sitting these games out with. But anyway, let's get back to the subject. If there is some way that you go, you know what? And you go to him. If I'm Mitch, I go to Victor. And I go, Big Phil, I'm going to extend you. We're in the NBA Cup final. I'm going to extend you a little bit. Victor's not going to say no. He's a competitor. Mm-hmm. So the strategy that they had for the fourth quarter, I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like it. You get outscored 35-19. You know, the Knicks, they turned it on. And that's going to be one of the learning points we'll talk about later with San Antonio and where they need to go in order to be that championship team is when the other team puts their foot down, you're right there to meet it. But we'll get into that, Casey.
Yeah, we will. Not the Spurs night in the meantime, though. A 124 or 124 113 defeat in this NBA Cup.
NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
An NBA insider likes Miami's chances in a potential deal for Giannis Antetokounmpo.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast.
Giannis watch is continuing. It doesn't seem like this is going to come to an end anytime soon, but we do have some new information. According to Jake Fisher of the Stein Line, some teams are concerned about Giannis's injury history when it comes to trading for him and, of course, signing him to an extension. He's currently out with a calf strain. Remember, it was a non-contact injury that he suffered in the middle of a game, goes down. People feel fearing the worst at that time. It's not an Achilles, it's a calf strain, but I don't know that there's two more scary words in sports right now, especially in the NBA, than calf strain. So teams are going to want to see Giannis when he comes back from this injury before they trade for him and commit to him. But it's not just that, right? He's also missed 2 of the last postseasons because of injuries. And he's on the other side of he's 31 years old. He turned 31 years old 10 days ago. All of that, according to Fisher, could drive down Giannis's trade value, despite the fact that he's a consensus top 3 or 4 player in the NBA. So then this is what Jake Fisher writes, and I think this is the part that will be particularly interesting for Heat fans. He goes, quote, "I'm not so sure I agree when I hear rival teams denounce Miami's best possible trade package as not being good enough to ultimately land at Antetokounmpo. In terms of in-season suitors, I'm struggling to pinpoint another team capable of presenting a deal that would clearly trump the Heat's richest pitch. With the Thunder, Spurs, and Rockets not expected to join a theoretical Giannis sweepstakes, what team can elbow into the bidding and appeal to Giannis as a team he wants to stay with an offer that trumps Miami's ability to package Tyler Hero, Khalil Ware, draft compensation, and maybe more?" End quote. David, when you hear that, when you read that, we did a recent episode about Giannis optimism. You were trying to keep down expectations. I think I was trying to temper expectations a little bit more. But it is interesting that when Jake Fisher talks to teams, they tend to do the thing that we talked about on that latest episode about, you know what, that Miami never really has the best trade package. Are they really going to land the superstar this time around? Because they keep swinging and missing on these guys. But as Jake writes, there doesn't seem to be an offer out there with a suitable team clearly better than the Heat's offer, at least theoretically.
I agree with him. I think that's the reality. I think whatever you can put together that might include Tyler, Khalil, and anything else, I think probably is the best offer you're going to get for Giannis. Even if you don't necessarily consider his injury history as a major concern, I don't think it's the same thing. Like, I think Luka's trade which is the most recent top 5 player trade in the NBA. That's what everybody's going to reference. That was a complete and total aberration. I think that was more just a really poor choice on behalf of the Mavericks front office for a lot of different reasons. And it wasn't like the Mavericks hadn't been successful. They had just made a trip to the finals. And so the idea of trading Luka was just, a very unusual one. And so they didn't necessarily get requisite value. Not that you're not going to get the same kind of value for it.
They also only dealt with one team in those negotiations. They didn't open it up to, a sweepstakes.
Yeah. Right. So I tend to agree with Jake's perspective here. But what I did like, which I think is even more encouraging, is the fact that, as you pointed out, other teams are kind of downplaying Miami's overall ability to do that. That strikes me as kind of being afraid of Miami more than anything else. It's
such a good take.
I think what they're saying is, no, there's no chance Miami could do this, because it sounds like fear. Like in the past, they've never questioned it. Even recently, The Athletic had a poll about all the front offices in the NBA, and Miami is still considered third. You look at this fan base and their perspective on the front office, it's like, oh, they haven't pulled off a trade. around the league, they're still always going to be scared of Pat Riley. Pat Riley will be always feared around the league, and he is going to have the kind of cachet to be able to pull off moves. And I think when other teams start saying, you know what, I don't think they have that good a deal, what I hear is, I think they could actually pull it off. And that's where I think they're kind of a little scared that Miami might be able to land that superstar that vaults them into title contention.
So I want to go back to your point about the Luka trade, because I think it's a really good one and it's worth kind of going into a little bit more. When you trade a superstar, it used to be the case that when you traded that superstar, you at least needed to get a ticket to your next superstar, because you're absolutely right. You never get requisite value right away. You're not trading a superstar for a superstar. That doesn't happen. But are you getting that lottery pick that turns into the next? Are you getting that young rookie who could blossom into an all-NBA caliber player? You need that ticket to your next superstar when you trade a superstar. That used to be the case. Okay. That's not necessarily true as much lately because of the CBA. Look at recent trades, not just Luka, but it's a good example, but you also look at Jimmy Butler, Kevin Durant. The teams that traded these superstar-type players didn't get that ticket back, right? I thought Phoenix did pretty good in that Kevin Durant trade, but they kind of put themselves in a corner after openly shopping him before the trade deadline. The Heat, we've talked enough about. If they would have traded him sooner, maybe they could get a little bit more value at. Maybe they do get that lottery ticket, although, as we talked about on a recent show before that Warriors game, that package is looking pretty good right now for Jimmy Butler, especially the way that Warriors fans are talking about Jimmy right now. But without going down the pity highway too far, for players who are over 30 years old and do huge extensions, the pool of teams just isn't as big as it used to be because of how stringent these luxury taxes and these aprons are now. And so when that pool isn't as big, you're not going to drum up the same demand. And when you're not drumming up the same demand, the return that these teams used to get aren't the same. It's why Danny Ainge does what he does, right? Where he always positions himself as, I'm not trading this player, even though as soon as he says I'm not trading this player, you could bet your bottom dollar he's probably going to trade that player. But the idea is to increase leverage. And so for Giannis, like, the Bucks aren't going to be able to have that leverage if Giannis just comes in and says, hey, I want a trade. And, oh, by the way, I'm due an extension. So any team that trades for me, I kind of have not veto power, but something close to it, because I can tell that team, you could trade for me, but I'm not going to re-sign with you. And for the cost that it would take to get me anyway, that's just the risk is too great for them to do that. So if Giannis does want to play in Miami or New York or wherever, and the Heat come up with this trade package, which I do think is pretty good, Tyler Hero, Milwaukee native, Khalil Ware might be that ticket to your next superstar player with the leap that he's taken this year, plus a couple of first-round picks. That's a pretty good return as long as the Thunder and Spurs stay out of this and that Giannis doesn't want to go to the Atlanta Hawks, which I think is a really big piece in this.
Yeah, I think, you brought up the Jimmy trade, and I think we saw that even with Butler. Like, he said, no, I have no interest in Memphis, so I don't have any interest in this team. So they were scared off. Like, those teams, we don't know the level of interest, but he made it clear, him and his agent, I should say, made it clear that they were never really in the running. And so I think you have a similar situation here with Giannis having some level of power in deciding what team he goes to next. And I think in that sense, I think there's enough faith about Miami, if he wants to re-sign here, if he wants to be part of this team, that he can appreciate what this front office has historically been able to pull together, and that he views a commitment to Miami as a likely one. So look, it's not to say, and I know we talked about this in that recent episode that you brought up, there is a lot of noise and who knows how to separate all of this. But I think, as I said then, I think Giannis would find Miami a palatable option. I mean, for a lot of reasons. There's stability here. There's consistency. There's the intent of winning, even if the winning actually hasn't taken place. But there's also a front office that's proven and has a proven track record of being able to get kind of deals done. And I mean, it's exciting. It's exciting to even think about and consider. I mean, I think even I saw a report that said Jason Williams also mentioned that maybe the Heat would pull off, and he said it a lot more strongly that he thought Pat Riley was going to get Giannis Antetokounmpo and John Moran. I don't know how that's going to work out, but that seems like the kind of
I don't know that I want
swing.
that. Can we just Stick with Giannis for now.
It
John
might
Moran's
just
hurt
be
again.
those two. Yeah, I know. It might just be those two players and not somebody
That's
else.
it. And Kashad Johnson just running around trying to grab rebounds.
We've got an update on Davante Adams and who will replace him.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast.
The big story in Rams land, of course, is Davante Adams' hamstring. And yeah, on the squad show, I said, hey, take my hamstring, Davante. And then people in the comments said, D-Mac, if Davante had your hamstrings, he wouldn't last one play. So, I mean, I'm offended by that. But Sean McVay did say yesterday he's as tough as it gets, Davante Adams, and quote, I want to see what it looks like with the time we have. And I think there's a couple things to this. One, a little gamesmanship, right? You want to kind of kick the can down the road as long as you possibly can as far as giving the Seahawks something to prepare for. And, of course, I don't think it's going to change that much. But this is kind of what the Rams do and typically what Sean McVay does when it comes to injuries. But as far as insiders, you've heard multiple people, whether it be Ian Rappaport and guys around the league saying if they had to guess that he'd be done for the remainder of the regular season, if the Rams get the bye, it would definitely help get him as healthy as possible. But at least right now, the feeling is that he probably will not be ready and available on Thursday night against the Seahawks.
Yeah, you're not going to see him Thursday. You're not going to see him Monday, and you're not going to see him the final Saturday or Sunday of the season. We're trying to figure, Rams in the cards that last week. We don't know if it's Saturday or Sunday. Hopefully you see him in the playoffs. That's the next time that you may see Davante Adams because, I know we're going to get into this. If they win on Thursday, then everything is perfect because he gets literally 4 weeks off without having to do anything. You hope that thing heals to the best you can, and you get the best version of Davante Adams for the postseason. If they lose on Thursday, you're going into the wild card probably for sure anyway. So let's leave Davante Adams where he is and get him healthy for the playoffs. So either way, it's going to be about a month before you see him again, almost assuredly. Now, never say never. I don't think they're ever going to come out for the reasons that you said and say he's not playing, but we all saw what happened, right? We've all seen that injury before where a guy like Adams is running and just pulls up all of a sudden, and we know what it is. We know how long that typically takes to heal. And, the good news is the Rams have lots of weapons. The bad news is that might be their best one, and they're going to go into that Seattle game and hopefully not the playoffs, but they're going to play their final 3 games of the season almost for sure without Davante Adams.
That is definitely, I think, the feeling. I think, we saw you on your show with DeMarco and Travis yesterday. It feels like this is not only the right decision for the Rams, but the right decision for basically Davante Adams as well. Because if you're the worst thing you could have is to force him to play and then have zero chance that he's going to be available in the playoffs. So I think if I had to choose between the two, force him to play, and you're not going to get 100% version of Davante Adams anyway, right? It's not like you're going to get prime Davante Adams. I'm sure that he could be valuable in the red zone like he always is. But, he was running some big-time vertical routes, some go balls, some nines, and people were saying, oh, why is he doing that? The truth is, if guys are on the field, they're going to go 100%. You can't have guys out there just running limited routes, especially in a game that you need to win. So, that's very Monday morning quarterback too.
Yeah, especially, at that position. If you had let's just in an alternate universe, if Matthew Stafford had a hamstring injury, could he go? Yeah, he could because he takes the snap and he stands there and he surveys the field and he delivers the foot. Davante Adams is running on every single play. And like you said, if he's out there, he's going to try to go as hard and as aggressively as he can. So this really isn't much of a decision at all. This is a no-brainer. And I guess if there's a silver lining to this, Doug, it's that the Rams punched their ticket to go to the postseason with the win against the Lions. So you don't have to. We have to win this game. You don't. You could. They're not going to. But theoretically, they could lose their final 3 games of the season. They're going to the playoffs. So they have the luxury of putting him on ice. Literally and metaphorically for the next month or so before you have to try to go in there and you're in an elimination situation. So this is an easy decision. I think it's the right decision. And I'm at this point, I'm just hopeful that when he does come back, whether that's a wild card weekend, whether that's the divisional weekend, if they in fact get that bye, that he's Davante Adams and not a guy running around out there on one leg. Because I know he's going to give it a go. I know he's going to try to do it. But if he's not at the best version of himself, that certainly isn't ideal.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic point. The fact that they did clinch a playoff spot at the very least, because if they lose that game and he's injured, then you're kind of a little bit in panic mode. You're just kind of wondering, oh man, we don't play him, are we going to in the playoff? And there's just kind of all the doomsday scenarios, and they're certainly not doing that. He's a big Taco Bell guy. He's like obsessed with Taco Bell. Why do I feel if you just like poured Baja Blast all over his hamstring, it would immediately have healing powers? Or if he had like 40 ounces of it, I mean, come on, like
it would probably strip the finish off of the floor wherever it pooled underneath it, and you'd have to refinish his entire home. That stuff has some interesting properties, I'm sure.
Baja Blast, man. But never fear.
Very natural looking product. That color is something you see in nature all the time.
It's the color for me. It's a clean little electric blue, whatever the heck it is. But maybe when they make Baja Blast Zero, I'll jump in. I can't do the full blown, But Mike LaFleur, Rams offensive coordinator, he is singing the praise of Konate Mumfield. And Mumfield has secretly emerged as the Rams' number 3 receiver. I mean, I think you look at their offense, you're going to see a lot of tight ends get involved. You're going to see Puka Nacua and Davante Adams getting a lion's share of the targets from Matthew Stafford. But Mumfield, he's played between 38 and 45% of the snaps in his last 4 games. And the production hasn't been eye-popping. I mean, 5 catches for 42 yards and a touchdown. But when he's been on the field and he's gotten that valuable experience, I think that they're not going to be caught necessarily in a situation where they're throwing someone out there that has zero experience or doesn't understand the offense. And LaFleur said that he's always absorbing the little nuances of the position, playing behind 2 great receivers. And I mean, that is a testament to this organization's culture, right? I mean, even if you're not getting the targets, you're ready to go, and it's this next man up mentality. So he's going to be at the X. He's going to be on the outside. And one of the reasons why the Rams picked him up was he was a great route runner at Pitt. And of course, to think that he's going to be Davante Adams as getting in and out of his breaks or route runner is unrealistic. But hey, if you could have a guy on your team that can at least allow the offense to run like it should, Mumfield could be that guy. And you could also see some wide receiver by committee too. I mean, Tutu Atwell, you're getting a lot of love in the comments about Tutu being available and things like that. But what I want to see is a big game from Terrence Ferguson. I want to see a big game from Colby Parkinson, and I want this run game that is just continue to flourish to dominate in what's expected to be a very rainy Seattle up in against the Seahawks. Yeah,
I'm just flabbergasted that Tutu isn't going to step into that role. I mean, he had a catch last week, so that's very exciting.
You said it was a nice catch, and now you're acting like
it was. It was a very nice catch. Singular. It was good.
That was the catch of the game for Tutu, okay?
It was. By definition, it was the catch of the game because it was the only catch of the game. I think what you said is right. And I think this is why this is exciting. Look, this happens in sports all the time, right? Where a guy that is incredibly important to what you do is unavailable because of injury. That's the case with Davante Adams. And the person that gets an opportunity to step into that vacated spot really delivers in a meaningful way. I think that's what Mumfield has a chance to do. And I think that it's a real chance as opposed to just a, hey, anything could happen kind of chance because of what you said. Sean McVay and the Rams have this unbelievable culture that has allowed people to get better and better and better and better, that when they do get a chance to go in there, they thrive. We've seen it so many times. Look at what's happening out at right tackle with Warren McClendon, right? Warren McClendon was somebody that nobody was saying, oh, you got to put him in. It's like, hey, we got to put him out there because Havenstein is struggling. He's hurt. And all of a sudden it's like, we don't even talk about it anymore. The same thing happened out at left tackle with Alaric Jackson. We see with Omar Speights at middle line, like these guys that you just really are not thinking about all that much, get these opportunities And then the next thing you know, it's just their job because they're holding it down in a real way. So hopefully Mumfield can kind of slide into that role. It's a testament to the coaching staff that they've been able to kind of build an environment where guys can thrive like that. But, hopefully Mumfield picks up the slack. Davante Adams is probably going to the Hall of Fame. So you're not going to be Davante Adams, but all you need to be is a guy that can be open occasionally, because for all the reasons the tight ends, the running backs, Puka, of course, they still have plenty of weapons that you can use. You just need to be one of those weapons.
NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
It's put up or shut up time for the Lions with 3 games to go. Who needs to step up?
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast.
The Detroit Lions have 3 monster games coming up with Pittsburgh, Minnesota, and Chicago coming up. If the Detroit Lions do not perform, and if the Detroit Lions do not win their last 3 games, it's curtains on this season. It is trouble time. Now, if the Lions finish and win their last 3 games and finish 11-6, they have a 96% chance to make the playoffs at 11-6. If they finish 10-7 and lose to the Steelers but beat Minnesota and Chicago, it's at 41%. And if they finish 10-7 with wins over Pittsburgh and Chicago, also at 41%. But that's also going to come with a lot of help. Bottom line is this. They got to win these games, and it starts this Sunday at 4:25 against the Steelers. If you watched the Steelers last night, good win for them in the cold weather on Monday Night Football against the Dolphins. We know Tua and the Finns just don't seem to win in weather below 40 degrees. Steelers had some injuries last night. Samolo, they're pretty good guard. Herbig could be out. They're at one of their edge rushers and outside linebackers. So we'll see about Pittsburgh as they have a short week. But some guys have got to step up, and this is kind of where I wanted to start today, because we could sit here and I spent a lot of time on yesterday's show and go back and listen and watch it, talking about the defense, talking about the problems the defense is having, and they're having problems. But I've got 3 guys that I think if they step up and if they perform and really elevate their game over the next 3 games, I think the Lions have a very good chance of winning all 3 of those games. And this is not groundbreaking. This is not, this maybe you're going to say, it's just Captain Obvious rearing his ugly head on this Locked On Lions program. But first and foremost, Jared Goff, who played very well on Sunday in LA in his return to SoFi Stadium. Jared Goff, who played pretty darn well against the Cowboys. Didn't turn it over like Dak Prescott did. It's time for Jared Goff. I'm not saying put the team on his back, excuse me, but I think Jared Goff has to take a step forward here and deliver, because the run game has been inconsistent. We know the offensive line play hasn't been great lately. Pass protection was very good against the Rams, though, for the most part. But in watching some of the tape and the run blocking, the tight ends, Flying Zylstra brothers, Ferkser, Ricci, all these no-name tight ends that the Lions have, they do not block in the run game. They struggle to block in the run game. And it just illuminates it even more when you watch the film and you see the missed blocks that these guys have on counter plays, on anything that the Lions are trying to do, especially running between the tackles. They miss Sam Laporta and they miss Brock Wright. And Brock Wright ain't some great blocker either. But he's certainly better than the guys they're trotting out now. And Brock Wright and Sam Laporta, to quote Rick Pitino, are not walking through that door. So Jared Goff is the first guy that I'm thinking of that has got to step up. And if it's a 3rd and long, and I know how the Lions have been on 3rd and long this year, it's been bad. Goff's got to start making even more plays. And you know what? I thought he stepped up against the Rams. The pass to St. Brown where he moved out of the pocket. Some of the deep throws to Jamison Williams were money throws on the mark. Goff's got to elevate it even more now. And he was on this morning on the midday show on 97.1 The Ticket, and he's a little upset when apparently Karsh and I think it was Stoney on for Scott were saying that the callers have no faith in the team anymore and that they're a little bit negative. And Goff said, quote, "I don't get to reinstill faith in anyone. It pisses me off a little bit to hear that. We have to win this first one. Pittsburgh at home. We'll have it in front of our home fans. It'll be great. Go out there and get the W. And hopefully prove a lot of our people wrong," end quote. Just because a couple of ticket callers think the Lions are dead. But, whatever. If Goff says that pisses him off, good. I hope he's angry. I hope he plays angry. That's number one guy that I think has got to step up. Number 2, it's time for Aiden Hutchinson to really step up. I know he's being double teamed. I know that opposite of him, it's not the greatest, a crop of guys. Al-Quadin Muhammad's had a decent year. Marcus Davenport's been a disappointment. We've talked about Aleem McNeil and DJ Reader and all these other guys. But how about a strip sack this week from Aiden Hutchinson? How about some plays being made? Look, he made a great play on Matthew Stafford on that bubble screen. I mean, that was an athletic, insanely good play. But the Lions need Hutch to really pick it up these next 3 games. And he was the top rated PFF player on defense for the Lions this past week. So again, I'm not taking shots at Goff or Hutch. I'm just saying they got to bring it to another level these next 3 weeks. I don't want to read or see on social media during the Bears game in a must-have Week 18 game how we haven't heard from Aiden Hutchinson in the first half. That just cannot be. And the third guy that has got to pick it up is Dan Campbell. From a play calling perspective, we talked about it yesterday. The offense has been really good. A lot of splash plays, a lot of dynamic plays. The numbers are still there. The offense is still number 1 in the league in scoring. But David Montgomery has got to be utilized more. That's tough to do when you've got Jahmyr Gibbs. But when Montgomery gives you what he gave you this past Sunday, which was in the second quarter, a great drive that ended in a Montgomery touchdown. He can't touch the ball one time the rest of the game. If Montgomery's cooking a little bit and he's moving the pile, keep giving it to him. Then you bring Gibbs in. Maybe you play them together. Maybe you got Gibbs out in the slot and you've got him in motion and you're utilizing him in the passing game. Dan Campbell is a damn good coach. No one's saying he's not. He's done a fantastic job. But he's got to find a way to get his best players in the best positions because now it's win or else. All right? Win or else. Yes, if they lost one game here against Pitt, the game against the Bears has to be a win. But it starts this week with Pittsburgh. They've got to win this game too.
NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
Bear down, Chicago. It's the Bears squad. Everything Chicago Bears, every week.
This game is so massive. Lauren, when you look at this matchup, this rematch here, what do you feel is like the key difference here for the Bears to get a victory over the Packers in this game versus what happened just 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think unfortunately the Green Bay Packer injuries from last weekend might end up being one of those huge differences, right? With Micah Parsons torn ACL and Christian Watson went to the hospital with a chest injury. The right tackle, Zach Tom, left in and out of lineup again. He's been kind of doing that all season. And all of a sudden, you got a lot of Green Bay Packers fans. I even saw like Green Bay local radio saying like, I don't think they're not feeling very confident, I'll say, about their ability to beat the Bears on Sunday, or Saturday, even if like everything else went exactly the same on the field. I certainly think from the Bears perspective, I'm looking to see how they adjust defensively, because things were just too easy too often for Jordan Love making big plays on the back end of there. But I think we all got to be feeling pretty confident coming off of that Browns win, and also watching Green Bay lose, that things will be different on Saturday.
Yeah, I think a big thing for me is the last, let's say, 6 quarters of football that Caleb Williams has played. And you talk about the end of that, it took a bit in the Green Bay game, but we saw one of the better halves of football from Caleb Williams in the second half of that Green Bay game. And then this Browns game, one of his more complete games in general when it comes to just some of his decision-making, the accuracy on some of those throws. Was it perfect? No, there were still some things that obviously we want to see get cleaned up. But I still think when you watch that game from start to finish, it was one of the games where you felt like Caleb felt confident the entire game, and he was making incredible throws from start to finish. It wasn't that slow start that we felt like had happened, and us three have talked about it a lot this season. And I mentioned it that week before when we were recapping the Green Bay game, and I was like, look, Jordan Love didn't play well that first quarter. He just got it going the second quarter, and it took Caleb into the third to get it going when we were on the road playing against the Packers. And now you're home, so you have that that advantage of just the comfortability of playing. It's funny to me to go back and like remember preseason. Everybody's like, and I think we talked about it a little too, like, what is Ben Johnson going to do in the elements and the bare weather? He's coaching in a dome with Detroit and with Jared Goff, and how much different that is going to be. And then, what is Caleb Williams going to do in this weather, because he's a USC quarterback? And it was all these things. And now these storylines, I mean, he had his best game, and yes, it's the Browns, who aren't a good team overall, but the defense has been good, and they've been able to stop a lot of people from not having a ton of yards and not being able to have high completion percentages and not being able to score a ton. And so you saw kind of all of that still be able to happen offensively for the Bears. So to me, that's kind of what I'm looking at. Can Caleb Williams continue these last 6 quarters of football that we've seen him play? Because I think that's going to be a massive development. And I also think the Christian Watson thing is huge, because Christian Watson, to me, was the key piece to the Green Bay Packers beating us. And it just felt like he was just that little extra that they needed to get that offense going. And if they don't have a guy like that, then I do think that affects their offense massively.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. And I don't want to disrespect Micah Parsons here, but we saw the Bears' strategy in that game was run away from Micah Parsons. He really only got to Caleb like one time. He made his life hectic at times, but Christian Watson felt like the bigger deal, I'd say, more prominently in that last game. So these injuries are huge for the Packers. It's unfortunate in a way. Like it helps the Bears, but I hate to hear the excuse making that an opposing fan base can do in any sport. If the Bears win this weekend, I don't want to hear it from the Packers of being like, well, we didn't have Micah Parsons and all these different things. Like, well, the Bears aren't going to have Rome Odunze. So not that it totally equals out, but there's injuries on both sides. One thing that happened on Sunday's game that you also mentioned there, Lauren, was, the deep ball. Like we saw it on Sunday. Shedeur Sanders was able to find deep connections, but we also saw that with the Packers, 2 weeks ago. So 2 weeks running where your secondary has been exposed a little bit on the back end. What's your, when you're rewatching these games and you're seeing it play out, what's your concern level is that for the Bears, not just for this game, but going forward?
Yeah, the concern, especially there, is how similar they were in terms of like both of the deep throws from Shedeur Sanders were against blitzes with man coverage behind it, and most of the Jordan Love deep completions were blitzes with man coverage behind it. At least 2 of those touchdown plays, the Christian Watson, were man coverage with blitz in front of it, and like sending the house and trying to get after the quarterback is great, but if the quarterback can stand in there and make that throw, you're going to have fewer guys back there to cover, and especially if they have the speed of Isaiah Bond or Christian Watson, and the Bears don't have a ton of overall speed in the secondary, like that all of a sudden becomes a big deal. And like, it's one thing if like, okay, you can tip your cap to Jordan Love, did it well, and he's good against the blitz, but then you try the same thing again against even Shedeur Sanders, and he has, I think it was TJ Edwards was like coming right downhill unblocked. Like the blitz worked, at least from a pass rush standpoint, but he stood in there, got rid of the ball as the unblocked defender was coming up the field, and Bond was just faster than Jalen Johnson up the seam, and there's no safety help to help him because of the blitz you called. So, like, I'm just concerned that Dennis Allen has gone to it 2 weeks in a row and been burned on it 2 weeks in a row. And it's hard to little trust, like, is he going to not do it for a third week in a row? If he, is he going to learn enough because you have to blitz with this pass rush, but can you mix in some more complex zone blitzes so you're not just trying to run, speed versus speed with receivers that an injured Jalen Johnson just can't quite keep up with the same way?
Yeah. Do you think that if Christian Watson's not playing, then you have a better chance just because of that? That's kind of what Watson does.
Yeah, I think so. And I think always with Dennis Allen, like with these blitz, right, there's a risk going in that, like, you're taking a chance that our pass rush is going to get home before he can throw the ball, or that he's not going to have the time to get it to that deep receiver, or that, like I know I'm leaving myself exposed, but I choose that risk knowing that. And so if you feel like, well, without Watson there, that does lower my risk, then maybe you can keep going to it. But Jordan Love has been so good against the blitz that I still don't like the idea of keep trying the same thing over and over, expecting different results. Because I still think, depending on who's out there for Green Bay on offense, they still have some speed there. Guys like Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed and David Wicks can run. Matthew Golden has some good speed. I mean, they're not Christian Watson fast, but if Jalen Johnson's still hobbling a little bit, and if Tyreek Stevenson's in and out of the lineup, and Kevin Byard looked particularly slow last week against the Browns too, like, I just wonder if there's enough separation there that scares you.
Yeah, it's to the point where it feels like it's the biggest story for the defense now. And that combines with what you said with the pass rush, is the pass rush isn't good enough. So our team's going to want to take advantage. And we look at, potential playoff matchups and things like that, or even just really a critical week 18 game against the Detroit Lions, team that scored a ton of points on you, is that if you're giving up everything over the top, like, you just have this huge glaring weakness on your defense that hadn't been as much of an issue during the season. So, like, that's my hope, is that, it's just 2 bad games and they're going to figure something out, because that feels like the ultimate test in this one, is that you had, Bo Melton scoring a 45-yard touchdown on you as well. Like, I wasn't even sure I knew who Bo Melton was when he crossed into the end zone at that point. So it's just like, you have to be better there defensively. Taylor, when you look at Caleb and you were talking about him, and how do you feel like what you saw in the Browns game, where, that he got going much quicker? What do you want to see this weekend against the Packers to get Caleb Williams going quicker in this one?
Yeah, I think that is going to be the key, is you don't want it to be another game where it's taking 2.5, 3 quarters to really get the offense going. And we'll see. I mean, you're seeing Luther Burden and Rome Odunze pop up on the injury report, so that's not ideal going into a game like this weekend. But I do think that you just saw, and I saw one of the tweets Courtney Cronin went in about how much more play action has been ran. Maybe that's the key at this point in time, is you do a lot more of that. You see the success rates in it. Let Caleb use his legs. I just feel like that's something we talked about even preseason, is that play action and RPO and all of that type of thing, and being able to be a little bit more creative. You can run the ball. It's now something that it has been consistent for a while, for more than half the season at this point, that you've been able to run the ball. So you still want to use that and take a little bit of pressure off of Caleb. And I think we talked about that, of doing that earlier. And, you want to give Caleb the confidence and get some of those big throws in there and complete some stuff to get him going. Because it feels like once a couple of those happen, Caleb really turns on. But at the same time, I think running the ball right away and kind of starting to wear out the Packers defense early, and then letting the offense open up in other ways, I think is going to be the key this weekend, because I think that's what they did in the second half of that Packers game. And that's what really ended up working for them.
I've been stuck on what Ben Johnson said this week about he's really seeing the game slow down from Caleb Williams, and whether or not we are seeing a corner being turned here, because he was so much more accurate against the Cleveland Browns than he had been in previous weeks. And I'm not convinced that that's fully just, the defense is so bad. Because, like, we've seen, whether even against Green Bay and Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, like, receiver is open and he just misses the throw, right? Steps into it or doesn't step into it properly, puts too much on it, et cetera. And it's just like, it wasn't a result of like, the defense is what made Caleb Williams miss that throw. It was like he just missed the throw. And against Cleveland, there's one play that he clearly just missed on the deep throw to DJ Moore that he underthrew. That's really the only truly inaccurate aimed throw downfield. There's 3 others that are like kind of close and tight that the defender can make a play on, but like the accuracy was just so much better that I do wonder if there's an aspect of, not that he's going to be that accurate every single week, but that there has been a real slowing and settling in here that is now like clicking in it, and that you can expect him to start faster just because like he won't miss, like, first couple plays against the Packers, right? Misses Luther Burden on the quick out route and then misses DJ Moore on deep in, where like he sees it, reads it, and just misses the actual accuracy of the throw. But he wasn't missing those throws against Cleveland. And again, I'm not convinced that that's purely because the defense was that much worse. The receivers were open against Green Bay, just as open as they were against the Browns.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point because it reminds you like what you would hear about like a 3-point shooter in the NBA, where it's like, see the first one go in the net, and then they're probably going to make their next three, especially guys like, like JJ Redick and those great 3-point shooters that we've seen. Caleb kind of feels like that to me right now, where it's like that first big throw of the game, if it's complete for 15, 20 yards, feels like you're going to be humming. And then the Packers game, it really took to the second half to get to that first big completion, to kind of the reset at halftime helps him out a lot. So I think they're going to try to attack in the air, and Swift and Monangai were good in that last game. And I'd like to see more of an emphasis. And now that you have both sides of the field kind of open to you, right? Like you can run to the left and to the right. You don't have to only attack Micah Parsons like they were trying to do the last time. So that should help too. But it just feels like a quick start is really the key. It's like to a Bears win. Like even if it's just a field goal, like drive down, first time you touch the ball, put points on the board, a good drive, especially in these rhythm plays that are so the scripted plays. I think it's just if that goes well, I think the Bears win this weekend. If that drive doesn't go well, I'm probably going to be internally panicking a little bit.
Even against the Browns, that first drive ends up, I think they had a false start on the second play, and then third down, they throw the screen to Kyle Monangai and he drops it, right? And they go 3 and out, but it never felt like,
it's true.
But it never felt like, Caleb is having trouble getting into a rhythm here yet, right? He didn't have those mistakes from him starting to compound there. It was like other guys were kind of screwing up along the way, and so when you get back in the second drive, like he's still like back getting up to speed, right? It's not like, he missed, so he's got to force it in here and he missed again. It's like, you're not building up that sort of frustration or that pressure of like, I got to start connecting on some of these. Like he could just kind of keep it rolling and say, all right, like, kind of reset for drive number 2 and then get going from there. So there's at least some ability here to kind of, even if you don't connect perfectly on the first drive, it doesn't have to be the very first drive, but it's got to be like quickly early in the game.
Yeah, it's funny because that Monangai on the first drive, I remember being like, I'm not even mad at you because I can't feel my hands watching this game. So I know, and we've talked about like the speed of Caleb's, the way that pass comes out, how fast it is. And I can't imagine like for some of these guys, especially in that weather, having to catch some of those Caleb passes because they're rockets most of the time. That's one thing we've talked about. We want to see maybe a little more touch on some of the stuff when you're not having to throw downfield. But yeah, I agree with you guys. I think the big thing, and it's not saying like, you better score a touchdown on the first drive. I just think you want to see some movement. You want to see things look a little fluid. And I just think that for Caleb, it's so important to have that moment of like, okay, that's what I like. Let me just, the lights turn on the moment he does something incredible. And sometimes that's spinning out of something. And, we talk about the flea flicker to Luther Burden early in the year. Sometimes it's those moments. Sometimes it's just an easy completion where you get those yak yards. But for him, it just always feels like it turns on after that one moment. So you want that early in the game.